Welcome to the Food Startups Podcast.
Hey, and welcome to the Food Startups Podcast, episode number 16. My man Matt, what is going on?
Doing good. Running around Bogota this week trying to get things set up for my U.S. product launch.
Oh, excellent, dude. That's awesome. That's awesome. And running around Bogota can be a blast, right?
Well, it depends on what time of the day. It's a city with a population of 10 million, so it can be a little bit difficult, and the phone calls and getting people to answer your emails. This is part of the territory, what we signed up for, working in South America, and it's a challenge, but I think I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah, dude. I think that if there's anyone who can navigate that landscape, it's going to be you, especially with your superb Spanish skills and your knowledge of the streets.
So you're talking to me at my best moment. You haven't seen me when I've been completely frustrated and doubting about whether or not I should continue. No, it's going well, man. It really is going well, all jokes aside. And the biggest thing that's going on right now is finding a co-packer.
Wow, interesting. And so how long have you been on that trail for?
About a month. Now, a co-packer, for listeners that aren't clear, is a plant that can actually handle the food and touch it raw, and they're authorized to do that, to put it into packaging.
Yep, and that's a pretty hard thing to find in the United States. You doing that in the U.S. or Colombia?
I'm doing it in the U.S., and you're right, Danny. It's way more complicated than I thought it was going to be. There's tons and tons of specifications. Even the bags that you send the food in, they need to know the tech specs of the actual bags.
Wow, interesting. Okay, well, dude, man, we're wishing, I am wishing you luck, and our listeners are wishing you luck, and so I definitely want you to keep us updated on that in the coming months.
Right on, and I wanted to update our listeners with one piece of news that we're pretty proud of here. As you know, our 11th episode was about FDA food facility registration and U.S. agents and all that type of stuff. And we talked about how, we were kind of disappointed that there were companies that were charging absorbent amounts for about a half an hour of work. I got in touch with the Ministry of Agriculture here in Colombia, and we're going to record a free YouTube web series for Colombian farmers on how to sign up for the FDA and U.S. agent for free without having to pay a lawyer $5,000.
Wow, dude, that's awesome. That's really great, man. Congratulations on that. I mean, dude, that's just huge news. It's so great to just help small businesses out, and especially if they're working in agriculture, because agriculture just gets the shaft so much.
So let's get into today's episode. Today we're going to interview someone who is importing coffee from Colombia and selling it to specialty stores in the United States.
I want to introduce Daniel Velasquez. He's our guest, and he's Campesino Specialty Coffee. Really, it's just a privilege and a pleasure to have him on the show. I know he's really busy and calling in from D.C. and running his business, importing coffee and working on multiple cylinders. So thanks a lot and welcome.
Thanks, Matt, Danny. I appreciate you guys having me part of the show tonight. Real pleasure to be able to talk with you guys and kind of tell about my story about bringing the coffee over from our family farms over to the States.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So wanted to just dive right in. So tell us a little bit about, what's your story? I know you work in Colombia and you're importing coffee into DC. How did this happen? And where are you at right now with your business?
Yeah, sure. Just to give you a little bit of background, my grandfather was a coffee worker back in the 1920s who fell in love with the farmer's wife. A farmer's wife, him ended up having 16 kids. One of the kids is my father. So as you can see, coffee's been in the family for a long time. Farms have been maintained in the family ever since my grandparents were married. So we're down to about a couple farms, 2 or 3 coffee farms left, still in the family, and they've kind of from there, other farms have come into the, cousins, second cousins, third cousins. So right now, there's a lot of good coffee coming from those farms. And about 3 years ago, I went down on a trip to an uncle's farm, tried the coffee, and it was delicious. So that's kind of what got the wheels turning on how do I get that coffee over to the States and maintaining those unique characteristics of those beans.
you make it sound pretty simple from that discovery that you started to import them, or you knew right away. How'd that actually get set up? Because I know it's hard to work with coffee. I know it's hard to export the stuff.
It really is. The main hurdle is the Coffee Federation, which makes it very difficult to export beans, which is not necessarily a bad thing. They want to make sure that it's high quality beans, free of any defects. They don't want bad beans exported from the country. I hate to say it, but all the bad stuff stays in the country, and that's pretty much what the majority of Colombians are consuming. They're consuming the horrible quality beans that can't be exported. That culture is changing within Colombia, and it's the past year or so, it's been changing a lot in Colombia, which is great. But not getting too far off topic, bringing over the beans has been quite a challenge, something that's taken a lot of time, a lot of footwork, phone calls, emails. But fortunately, I've been able to get the beans from the farm, directly from the farm here to our facility in D.C. It's taken a lot of time, a lot of harassing, if you will, to try to get people to help out. And fortunately, I've lined up the right people to do so.
Daniel, how did your family feel about this when you told them that you wanted to take their coffee and bring it to the U.S.?
Well, at first it was something that they weren't too keen on. They knew that it was a difficult process to go through the Federation. They pretty much saw it as a waste of time. I just stayed persistent, and they weren't much of help and I didn't want to try to get them too involved because I didn't want to waste their time if it never came through. But at this point, we got our first shipment in last year, and they've been gung-ho about it and thrilled. Something that they would never dreamed of, having their beans represented here in the States. When 95% of their beans were being sold to the Federation, the other 5-10% was kind of roasted and sold under their little label to kind of townies, to people locally who maybe little shops around the way. But that's such a small percentage. I mean, those coffee packs that they were selling weren't going farther than 10, 15 miles away from their farm. Now we're talking about thousands of miles away, people in other countries trying their coffee and loving it. So it's been a big deal for them. It's been very emotional, to say the least.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations. I'm sure that it's something that is just a tremendous source of pride. And, I know that coffee in Colombia is one of the greatest things about living in Colombia. And so, just an aside real quick, but I've imported a roaster into Colombia, a small roaster that roasts about 250 grams. I've also imported green beans from different countries just to do tastings and different cuppings and things like that. I can't even begin to tell you just how difficult it was to actually get the coffee in. So my question for you is, how long did it take you to really get up and running, and how much money did it cost? What was the runway like, if you don't mind my asking?
You guys are probably pretty familiar with how business is done in not only in Colombia but in Latin America. I think in general, it's just a different way, a different approach. So it was time consuming. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of emailing and having to follow up days later and then again days later to get one response. And it's just how it goes dealing with Latin America. So it took a while to get things moving. It was probably a total of about 5-6 months before I got from knowing what I was doing, or getting the process down rather, to getting somebody to actually listen to me and say, hey, this guy's for real. He wants to get beans over here. So 5 or 6 months of phone calls to get somebody to finally engage and say, okay, let's do this. The phone calls I was making was to different exporters, because to export the coffee, you have to be approved with the Federation. That's not an easy process to do, and to find an exporter who wants to deal with smaller quantities directly with 1 or 2 farms is also difficult to do. A lot of these exporters that are approved by the Federation are doing containers worth from tons of farms, and they already have their set clients in Germany and Holland and Norway and the United States. So for me, I was a small fish. Okay, here's this guy who wants to do, 1,500, 2,000 kilos from his family farms. That's small fish. Let's not mess with him. I was finally able to run into somebody who was willing to help and could see my vision and could see past the first shipment, could see down 3, 4, 5 shipments down the road and see the bigger picture. So again, to get to that point, it was probably a good 5-6 months of reaching out to different exporters and trying to get somebody lined up.
And Daniel, moving on to the U.S. market and selling in the U.S. Now, I had this idea that maybe because you're of Colombian descent, and you obviously know Colombia, and Colombian coffee has the reputation as one of the best coffees in the world. Have you found in your sales that you have any expert appeal selling Colombian coffee in the U.S.?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's with specialty coffee. I'll tell you what really helps in selling is a story. People want to hear the story. People want to know where the beans are coming from. People want to know about the workers picking the beans. People want to know that extra dollar that they're paying is actually going further than some rich man's pocket. They want to know that extra dollar is actually going to feed a family, to pay for an education, and that's exactly what it's doing. So it's a transparent operation, and it's family run. So, I mean, to be able to present to these guys, hey, I'm Colombian. These beans are coming from my family's farms. Here are pictures of the workers that work for my uncle, my cousin. This is where they come from. This coffee is not only high quality, great stuff, but it's also transparent as to where your dollar is going. And they love that. And I love to be able to disclose that to them.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. And I know that specialty coffee is really grown in the past few years, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, we're I forget the latest statistic, but I mean, going from 100% of coffee consumers here in the U.S., so maybe only 12% were consuming specialty coffee in 2009, and now we're up to 27%. So it's and don't quote me on those figures, but I think it's pretty accurate. But it's definitely growing, and it's going to continue to grow, just like the wine market here is growing. California, I just read a statistic recently that 3/4 of their production is being exported. So, I mean, the United States is finally being known for wine. Beers in the same category, specialty beer breweries are blowing up, and now it's coffee's turn. Now people are starting to understand, heck, man, if I'm going to drink this every morning, I might as well drink good stuff, Forget Costco brand, forget, Folgers, Maxwell, not to speak badly about those companies, but, there's better stuff out there and people are looking for it. So the market's definitely growing.
Well, absolutely.
And guys, speaking of world class, and I have a funny story behind this. So Danny may deny this, but you brought up in our pre-interview that you have some world-class coffee from Salento. Salento is a pretty wonderful place. We'll link up to it on the show notes. Because Danny and I went for a sourcing trip to Armenia last year, and I actually had a meeting that Danny skipped out on to go horseback riding in Salento. And
I'm sure you had a great time too, man.
This is true. Salento, there is an appeal that Salento has that's undeniable. So when it's early in the morning, when that mist is still in the mountains, in those Colombian mountains, you can't but hop on a horse and get after it.
I'm right there with you. There's El Valle del Cocora, which is right there next to Salento. For me, it's probably the most beautiful part of Colombia. I mean, Santa Marta and Guajira, going up to those beaches are beautiful, and there's plenty of beautiful places in Colombia, but there's nothing like that area right there in Salento. It's just, it's breathtaking.
Agreed. Yeah, that's actually where I went horseback riding, and I mean, you said it. It's just mystical, picturesque landscapes with those there are these. There's a type of wax palm tree, I believe, that grows in the Valle de Corcara, and it's about they can grow up to about 50 or 60 meters high, I believe. These trees. So imagine big palm trees just shooting up around these beautiful valleys, and that's what the Valle de Corcara is. So Salento is a special place. Salento is right by there.
Yeah.
And so Daniel, so from Salento, you had told us that based on a certain type of rating system, that Salento coffee is highly ranked. Can you, in layman's terms, explain that rating system and why that coffee that you are selling in the U.S. from Salento is so high quality?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the rating system is set by CQI, which is the Coffee Quality Institute, and they basically have a chart on scoring coffees based on its different characteristics, its acidity, its flavor, aroma, fragrance. And coffees that are rated on a scale from 0 to 100, that are rated from 80 plus, are labeled specialty coffee. Anything below that, which are your brands, your Folgers, your Maxwell House, they're not in that specialty range. The one farm that we work with, which is a family farm in Salento, is consistently specialty. It's graded probably once a month. It's scored by the Coffee Federation, and it's been scored by other coffee associations, but it's consistently above 80. There is a competition, world-renowned, and it's the top coffee competition in the world. It's called the Cup of Excellence, in Colombia, Taza de Excelencia, well, in Spanish. Our farm in Salento was a finalist in 2010. The Cup of Excellence competition is done in only the top producing coffee countries in the world: Brazil, Colombia, just to put a few out there. So you can imagine Colombia, with its history in coffee, the competition is very fierce, and to be a finalist in the Cup of Excellence in Colombia is a big deal. So that was something pretty phenomenal, to be a finalist and considered one of the best coffees in Colombia, which in turn is pretty much one of the best coffees in the world.
Yeah, that's huge. If I can just jump in with a follow up. I'm a little bit aware, but I'm not 100%. So I've heard that coffee buyers, let's say a coffee importer, can buy Cup of Excellence beans, and they usually sell for a really high price, which can be really good for farmers. Is that right, or am I totally off?
No. You're right on. So what happens is the winner of the Cup of Excellence competition, whatever country it's held, their coffee is sold to the highest bidder. So you got X farm wins the competition, and people, the Alliance for Coffee Excellence, who hosts the Cup of Excellence, they basically open bidding, and whoever is the highest bidder takes home that lot, wherever that bean came from. So say our farm there in Salento has 12 lots. So the bean that got to the finals is from one particular lot. So the farmer who wins, that lot is sold to the highest bidder. We've heard, I think the highest bidding may have been maybe in 2012 or 2013. I think they were paying upwards $30 some dollars per pound, which is pretty darn high. I think the market right now is like $1.73 per pound. That's what the market's showing right now at the New York Stock Exchange. So at $35 a pound, that's a huge increase. Well deserved, of course. But you can see the desire of people to buy this specialty coffee, these Cup of Excellence coffees.
Absolutely. So how do you guys how do you guys set your prices, if you don't mind my asking? Is there a ballpark you work with, or do buyers just have regular prices?
You set in the prices with the wholesalers and specialty roasters here.
Yeah.
Again, everything is transparent. Basically, I'm straightforward with all my expenses, with what's paid to the farmers. Again, the farmers get based on what the market says. We don't pay that. We pay significantly more than what the market says. Why? Because they deserve it. These workers are underpaid, and we believe that they should be paid consistent with the product that they're producing. And basically, if the market says that they're getting paid $1.73 per pound, we're paying close to double for that coffee. And then there's shipping costs on top of that. So by the time it gets to from the farm to our bodega here in DC, and to the final consumer, which is or to the specialty roasters, it's put in front of them what the costs are, what the expenses are. So that's kind of how I base my pricing on. Of course, I need to make a living off of this, so my prices are good, on par with the quality of the coffee that's being provided to them.
Yeah, excellent. No, thanks a lot for answering that. I know that coffee prices that fluctuate widely and the volatility just because of the different quality you're getting, that makes it a pretty difficult market, I bet. And so, you have to be transparent and also bring your values to the table and be strong as far as how business is done. Business is done this way, because otherwise people can always be like, hey, why don't you just buy? We can just buy that $1.75 coffee, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. They can buy that $1.75 coffee, but bringing it back to Matt's question earlier about the being Colombian and having the family farms, and if that brings value, it does. Again, coming back to that, because these specialty roasters, they also want to sell that message to their customers. They want to be able to say, hey, we have this relationship with the actual farm. This is where this coffee is coming from. A lot of their coffees that they're getting may be specialty, but it's coming from some big wholesaler that buys in bulk from, if not the federation of different countries. Their relationships, and I'm saying all of them, but the majority of them don't have direct relationships with the farmers. So there's no connection there for the roaster. They're just buying from a warehouse that's filled with coffee sacks, where this is a different situation for them. So for them to pay a little bit extra for that, I think they're willing to do it, and they're happy to do it because they have that connection there directly with the farmer, which makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I want to let Matt jump in, but dude, I totally feel you. I think it's amazing, and also when you really taste good Colombian coffee, it's not worth it's not worth $2, it's not worth $5. It's just worth so much more because it's just special. Because coffee becomes sort of a religious experience. That's my opinion, but I know a lot of people feel that way, and that's why you have these amazing roasters in the States. So it's just it's a wonderful special time, and it's fantastic what you're doing.
Thanks, man. It's with a lot of love and passion that it's done with. So.
Great. And Daniel, I think some of our listeners will be interested in finding the answer to this question. Now, there is, and maybe in smaller amounts, organic coffee. And what does that exactly mean? And do you think organic coffee is any healthier than quality specialty coffee?
That's a very good question, and how I can answer that is there are different certifications. There's a USDA, which is I guess the most known, if you will, but there are different organic certifications throughout the world. Different countries have their standards, and basically what it comes down to is renewable resources, the conservation of soil and water, basically to enhance the environmental quality for future generations down the road. And to get certain certifications, especially USDA, it's a complicated process, and it can be pretty penny to get that. For example, our farm in Salento is an organic process, although it does not have the USDA certification. Now, with that being said, for a farmer to get that certification, USDA certification, and to produce a crappy coffee, it's just not going to happen. So, I mean, their coffee, if they're going to go and do an organic process, it's going to be good coffee on top of that. In addition to not having any pesticides, in addition to their fertilizer not being made with any synthetic ingredients or bioengineering. So is it healthier than a specialty coffee? Maybe it is healthier, but a specialty coffee is also going to be pretty much follow organic processes, but just not have that certification. So you're not going to have an organic coffee or a farm that follows organic procedures producing a crappy coffee. I guess is what I don't know if that makes sense at all.
I think if I'm right, from my just general experience in Colombia with learning about coffee, I've come to understand that altitude has a lot to do with coffee tastes, coffee notes, and altitude can also make it easier to be organic. Is that right? Yeah.
That's what they say, and I guess it's a rule of thumb, but there's also always exceptions. Is that the higher the altitude, the sweeter, the richer the coffee is going to be. Lower altitude, you get a more a rougher taste. But there's always exceptions. I guess a very popular region for organic coffees in Colombia is like the Santa Marta area, just because those are high peaks and perfect for its location close to the sea, and it just makes for a perfect for organic.
Yeah, I guess you can have good coffee in a lot of different ways, and organic's popular in the States these days, but coffee that is organic, it's I think it's probably hard to source, or that's just what I've heard. So thanks for sharing.
It's hard to source just because, again, the whole process to get it certified is a difficult one. I mean, it can take years. It can take 2 or 3 years to get the final certification done, and but it's rewarding as far as the payoff, because you guys know here in the States, people pay a pretty penny for that label, organic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, organic. People think that organic can just appear out of anywhere for any crop. Can be easier for some things and harder for some things because there seem to be specific challenges for specific crops. That there's so much world-class coffee here that I just have loved exploring and learning about it just as a hobby. And so repeatedly when I've gone to fincas, I hear about La Roca, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Basically, I hear about diseases and the landscape of coffee changing in a few years. Is there anything that you know about that or that concerns you?
Is this so you're talking about the little gusano, the bug that's been tearing up coffee fields. Right now, Mexico's having a really hard time, and Colombia, I think Colombia in maybe a couple of years ago had a really challenging time with this bug. But basically, it's a bug that goes into the cherry. It makes like a little needle-like hole, goes into the middle of the cherry and starts laying eggs and basically eats the cherry within. And it will just destroy a whole crop within like weeks. So again, Mexico's having a really hard time with this, and it has a big effect because farmers are like trying to keep their process as organic as possible, but then they get infected with this broca bug and totally wipe out their crops. So they're almost forced to use some kind of pesticide or something to kill off the bug.
Right. It's fascinating. It's fascinating to see that, hear about that, and also devastating in the sense that real people, farmers are affected.
Yeah, it's a devastating little bug.
Yeah, man, that sounds pretty scary. Now, Daniel, we wanted to finish up with your plans for the future. What are your goals for Campesino?
Basically, to keep growing, to spread our family farms, within the area, but continue to go across America and just spread our coffee to everyone who's willing to try it. It's quality coffee. it's something that we're fortunate to be able to get it out of Salento, out of El Quindío, and share it with coffee lovers all over. Not only that, and more importantly, is to better the lives of the people who are producing this coffee, and it goes a lot farther than that. It goes down to the pickers families, their kids, their relatives. The town benefits from it. In Campesino, we're taking it another step, and we're starting a little charity nonprofit. We're teaming up with the town school and the town parish to basically provide school supplies for the students at the local school there in Salento. So the idea is, a lot of these students are doing class activities in big groups because they don't have enough pencils and paper and notebooks and whatnot. So we want to provide school supplies, pencils, pens, papers, erasers, little book bags so they can carry their school supplies. And, these are small ideas. So, we're starting small, and I think it's just baby steps until we can give more back. And that's really the whole goal is to provide good quality coffee and give back where this stuff is coming from.
Fantastic. And Daniel, so you can buy your coffee on your website, and where else can we find your coffee right now if our listeners would like to buy it?
Yeah, you can buy it via our website. It's campesinospecialtycoffee.com. We're also on Facebook, Campesino Specialty Coffee. So you can buy it online. And you can find it in the Baltimore area. We're in a roaster in Baltimore called High Grounds Roasters. Michael up there take good care of you and are selling our beans like wildfire. We are in Vigilante Coffee in D.C., Qualia Coffee in D.C., Amori Coffee in Vienna, Virginia. And for our next shipment here at the end of April, we're going to be in several other specialty roasters around the way, in Alexandria, in another place in Baltimore. We're also in Corcoran Vineyard in Leesburg. We're at the Home Farm Store in Middleburg, Virginia, and we're continuing to grow. So, thank God we're, slowly but surely.
Excellent, man. That's great. And best of luck. And it's great what you're doing, especially paying it forward and helping out the rest of the area, the rest of the region in Salento.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on.
Yeah, Daniel, thanks for coming on. And as always, we are going to post the show notes on foodstartupspodcast.com with links, maybe some photos, and where to buy Campesino Specialty Coffee. Thanks so much for listening. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, find us online at foodstartupspodcast.com.